Last day we started the story, The Little Match Girl. We had a brief look at the author, Hans Christian Andersen, and what are his specialities. And I said he is specialized in fairy tales. Then I explained to you what is a fairy tale, how it is altogether a different genre which expresses high imaginations and adventures, and also employing the rare characters like fairies, witches, dwarfs, etc. Then I also explained to you the background of Hans Christian Andersen, how he was coming from a poor family and his society, where he lived, the social structures, segregation, how it affected him and how he had to fight in order to survive. And that was seen in the short story, The Little Match Girl. Towards the end I said, Andersen was never afraid to introduce feelings and ideas that children did not easily understand, because he was of the impression that as they grow up into young people and older people, when they experience life, they will come to know what these ideas and feelings are. That is where we stop. Today we shall look at the other aspects and also the story. I have two items today. One is the setting, another one is three items. The setting, the characters, the dialogue, and of course the plot. So it is four items: setting, characters, dialogue, and plot. We shall start with the setting. The setting of The Little Match Girl is one of the most wonderful settings. Why do I call it wonderful? Excellently done. Short verses, but expresses so much. Few lines expressing so much. See in your textbook, The Little Match Girl begins like this. It was bitterly cold, snow was falling, and darkness was gathering, for it was the last evening of the day, for it was the last evening of the old year. It was New Year's Eve. Please notice, the author speaks about the weather. Weather means the climate, climatic conditions. What was the weather? It was bitterly cold, very cold. Bitterly means terribly cold, and the snow was falling. The weather was bitterly cold and snow was falling. So in the setting, opening lines, he speaks about the weather. He speaks about the season of the year. It was New Year's Eve. What was the season of the year? It was New Year's Eve. What is the meaning of Eve? Eve means the last day or the previous day. So New Year's Eve means it is not 1st of January, it is 31st of December. So New Year's Eve, that is the last day of the year that was completing, and you are entering into the first day of the year. So it was the New Year's Eve. So he speaks about the season. He also speaks about the time of the day. What time of the day was it? darkness was gathering. Beautiful. How does he speak about the day? Darkness was gathering. When does darkness gather? What time it is? That means the evening has passed and it's getting dark. You can say another word for this time, dusk. Dawn to dusk. Dawn is early morning. Dusk is the end of the day where the sun goes down. So, that was a day. Darkness was gathering. That is, the darkness had just started to creep in. The day was over. And he speaks also about her miserable condition. In the setting, Hans Christian Andersen beautifully depicts what kind of child she was. What were her difficulties? What sort of a girl was she? Where was she coming from? Her financial background, her physical inabilities, or the difficulties she had to face, the sorrows she had to experience. Everything was very, very beautifully in small lines. He expresses it. What are the words used? Cold, gloom. Cold, gloom means gloomy, dull. Poor girl, little girl. That means she was very small in stature. Bareheaded and barefoot. Walked through the streets. Bareheaded and barefoot. You know that in abroad, especially European countries and other places, it's very cold, not like here. So people never go out without covering themselves. They have to cover their heads, they have to cover their bodies, and they normally put on shoes. So nobody walks barefoot. Barefoot means not having shoe. An empty foot, that's the actual meaning, but she had slippers. So without shoe, and she had nothing to cover her head. So bareheaded, barefoot, she walked through the streets. And very strangely, hardly people walk through the streets in those countries. In India it is very common. But in many of the foreign countries, they do not even walk through. They go by their own vehicle. So it was a rare sight. That means she was utterly poor. If a child had to walk through the street, if a child missed something to cover her head, if her foot was bare, that concludes that she was very, very, very poor. Then he says, she had slippers, hard slippers, now she does not have. And that was her mother's. She had a pair of slippers when she started walking, and when she was trying to cross the road in order to escape a speeding vehicle, she had to run fast and she lost them. And the author says she was wearing her mother's slippers and they were too big for her, did not fit her leg. That speaks again of much more poverty. She did not have a slipper of her own. She should have a shoe. She should have a pairs of shoes so that she can have Monday one pair, Tuesday another pair, going out one pair, going for shopping another pair. That's a normal custom. Here she did not have even slippers which are her own. So she was using her mother's slippers. And once again, it's highlighted because she lost one of them, and another one which was not lost has been carried away by someone, a slipper thief. So the one who has stolen the slipper must have been equally poor or even poorer than this little girl. And why did he take the slipper? He wanted to carry it home and preserve it. Most probably he is unmarried. He is a bachelor. When he gets married and when he has a child, he will use this to make a cradle for the child. What a poverty. What a miserable life. So he is already planning for the future. Now that he has got a slipper, he is keeping it in reserve for using it after so many years. So extreme poverty faced by the child and others. Naked feet red and blue with cold. Old apron to carry her matches. She was going to sell the match boxes. So, in order to sell matches, in order to attract the crowd or a customer, he should have been packed. The matches should have been very nicely packed. But she did not do because she was very poor. Or she should have placed them in a nice tray or in a box and carry them so that people, when they look at it, looks so attractive. She didn't have that too. So she was carrying it in her old apron. Apron is cloth normally we wear when you are working, when you are doing some work, for example, cutting vegetable. Or you want to cook something, then you put on apron and tie it behind so that the dress of yours is not getting dirty. So she goes in that old apron, not even a new apron. In the old apron, she is carrying the match boxes. Extreme poverty. She crept along, shivering and hungry. She crept along. What is the meaning of creep along? Not able to walk properly. That is, she did not have the strength to walk properly. She was tired, exhausted, lost energy. Probably she hadn't eaten anything. She did not have any drink to energize her. So she was just keep on creeping. Lot of difficulty, she was walking. Crept along shivering. She was shivering. The cold outside was terrible. She did not have, already we were told that, nothing to cover her head, nothing to cover her feet. Therefore, she was feeling so cold and she was shivering. And she was hungry. As I said, she hadn't eaten anything. Where did she sit? She sat in the dark corner. What is the meaning of dark? Darkness is symbol of what? What is darkness? Absence of light. Absence of light is darkness. Darkness is a symbol of isolation. Isolation means you are being separated, nobody to give you company, nobody to keep you company. You are alone, having nobody to keep company with you. That is isolation. So darkness is a symbol of isolation. She sat in a dark corner, not in the bright corner. She did not sell any matches. That means her business was of utter failure. 100% failure. Not even a single match was being sold. Complete failure. She was afraid to go home. Loaded with meaning. Every word is loaded with meaning. She is afraid to go home. Why? There is somebody waiting there to punish her. Who is that? Her father, her daddy. His daddy was very cruel to her. To send a small child to sell matches in the open and sending her without something to cover herself, not having proper shoes to put on, not having proper vessels to carry the matches, and sending her alone. It is a great cruelty. So, her daddy was very harsh upon her, very unkind to her. What he wanted was only business. She wanted to her to make some money for the family. Most probably, he must have been an ideal fellow who did not want to work. So he is waiting there and she is afraid to go back and she could not sell even single match. So when she goes back, what she receives, you can imagine. So all these words, all these settings, every word speaks of this little match girl. So that's why I said it is highly symbolic. All these things symbolizes three things. What are they? Isolation, poverty and sadness. Isolation, poverty and sadness. All these things. Sitting in the cold, sitting in the darkness, gloom, all these are isolation. Not having sufficient things to wear, not having a shoe, all these things speaks about her poverty. And she was sad because she was alone. So the setting is telling us they are all symbolic of isolation, poverty and sadness faced by the little match girl. Dear friends, that's the setting. Having seen the setting, now we will go to another item, that is other characters or characters in the short story. I told you that every short story should have at least one character. Normally there are major characters and minor characters. Here who is the major character? Yes, naturally it is the little match girl is the major character. And around her, those who are involved with her, the minor characters, who are they? The grandmother, the father, the slipper thief, the cooked goose. Why do we call cooked goose a character? Because it had the qualities of a human being. It had knives and forks and all attached to it. And it was on the table. From there it walked and came towards the little match girl. So it was a kind of animated character. So the grandmother is obviously she is the second in list of characters. Father's role is very limited. Father is depicted as a cruel, unkind man. And the slipper thief, yes, he steals a slipper and goes away. And the cooked goose appears in her vision. Dialogues in the story. A story should have some dialogue, conversation, dialogue. Dialogues reveal the character of the hero. Dialogues reveal the character of the hero. Dialogue reveals the character. What do you mean by revealing the character? Reveals the character's ambitions, plans, views of life. Ambitions means desires, wishes. Plans. What are the character's plans for herself and others? The views of life. How does the character look at life? The philosophy of life. All these things are revealed through dialogues. In our story, The Little Match Girl, most of the dialogue is between the little match girl and her grandmother. Towards the end of the story, beautiful conversations, beautiful dialogues between them. Her requesting the grandmother to do some favor to her, to carry her, to stay with her first, then later to carry her along with her. All these are dialogues. Then you will go to the plot. Plot is the main story. How the events are arranged. So we have seen this is the beginning of the setting. The beginning of the setting. And afterwards how she goes to this is setting is the beginning of the story. Then later the story progresses. As the story progresses, we will see how the plot is being handled. This is in the beginning. First speaks about the climate and other things. Then speaks about her physical inabilities and how she goes to sell the matches. And when she was unable to sell the matches, she sits in a dark corner formed by two buildings. You know, there are two buildings built together. One is getting out little bit, so it is made a corner and she sits there. Huddled down. Huddled down means to fall as a heap. Fall like a heap. She is so tired, she just falls down, sits down there in the corner. After that, we have the visions. There are four visions. Four visions. What is a vision? V-I-S-I-O-N. Vision. Another word for vision. Sight. Yes. S-I-G-H-T. Sight. Scene. Yes. Display. Yes. All this, whatever it may be, understand. Now you understand. To see something being displayed, something being depicted, a sight. So she had four visions. All these visions are also symbolic. So before the vision starts, the author says she was sitting in the dark corner. It was very cold, so much shivering. What does she do? She sits down and raises her legs and buries her head in between her legs so that there is little warmth created. You will see some of the pictures, especially the one of the picture I had given in the PDF. You will find how she is sitting. So we also, when it's very cold, we try to keep our heads just near the leg so that, and then hold it, wrap it with our hands so that there is some warmth. So she's sitting like that. Then the author says, if at all she had the strength to take and light a match. Strike. You can say strike a match or scratch a match. All these things are correct. If she could strike a match and light a matchstick, she would have got some warmth. Actually, that's what she does. She lights the first match. So the lighting of the matchsticks and the visions are connected. She lights four matchsticks, and she has four visions. So she strikes the first matchstick and she had the first vision. What was the first vision? It was that of a warm stove. A warm stove. The second vision was the lovely roast goose. The lovely roast goose. Third match she struck and she had the glorious Christmas tree. The fourth match she struck and she had her grandmother with her. As I said, they are all symbolic. Symbolic of her needs and desires. Never forget this point. Only if you keep this in mind, you'll understand the story. These four visions were symbolic of her needs and desires. What is need and what is desire? Needs are without which she cannot manage. Desires are more of a bit of fancy, imaginations. She wishes to have, need to have, and wishes to have. Need and want, he can say. Need means without which he cannot manage. Want is, if I get this one, it will be nice. For example, oxygen is a need for me. Water is a need for me, without which I cannot survive. Do I need to have an AC room? Yes, it's a want. If there is an AC room and it's very hot, I'll enjoy it. It's a want. It's my wish, but not need. But air and water, it is my need. So, all these visions are symbolic of her needs and desires. Her primary need of the time was warmth. It was bitterly cold. She was shivering. She was hungry. She had nothing to cover her head. She had nothing put on her feet. So the first and foremost thing for her to survive was warmth. Warmth to fight the cold. So that wish is fulfilled with the lighting of the first matchstick. She gets a warm stove. So when she struck the matchstick, it was just like a candle, it burned. Then it started to burn brighter and brighter. And at the end it became like a huge stove. Big stove giving out plenty of flame and light. So she was really warmed up. So the warmth for which she was looking for is fulfilled in the first vision. So these visions are a sort of dream or imagination wherein her needs are being met, at least in this manner. What was her next need? It was food. You remember when she was walking through the streets, she could get the smell of roasted goose. It was the eve of the New Year day. And in Denmark, that was a custom. On the eve of the New Year day, they used to have nice goose roasted and eat them and have some little wine. So, roasted goose was a delicacy on the eve of the New Year day. And she was walking, she got the smell of the roasted goose and she really desired to have one. That desire is fulfilled in the second vision when she struck the second match. So the lovely roast goose symbolizes food. Then what was her next desire? Now she has warmth to protect her from the cold. She has food to satisfy her hunger. So now the needs are being fulfilled. Once needs are being fulfilled, you go for your wants, your desires. Then she thinks of the Christmas tree which she had seen in a shop. She saw it through the glasses. She was standing outside the shop. She couldn't go inside because given her dress and other things, nobody will let her in. And she did not have money to purchase. If she goes inside, she'll be arrested. So she watched from outside the elegant Christmas tree which was kept inside for sale. And she wished to have one. Now that wish is being fulfilled. As I said, first the needs are fulfilled, now she goes for the wishes. The glorious Christmas tree is symbol of her wishes, her desires. Then she strikes the fourth match and the grandmother appears. Grandmother is a symbol of the good and loved. All that is good and all that is loved. Grandmother is a symbol of all that is good and all that is loved. Because it's very, very clearly given, grandmother was the only one who showed love to her. Grandmother was only one with whom she felt free. Her isolation, only in the company of her grandmother, she was not isolated. She was not sad. So, her ultimate desire is to have the grandmother once again with her. So, at the striking of the fourth match, she sees the grandmother. So, dear students, that is how they are connected. Four visions connected with, symbolically connected to her needs and desires. Once needs are fulfilled, warmth and food, she goes to her desires. First desire is to have a Christmas tree, and the greatest desire to have the company of the grandmother. And when the grandmother comes, she knows that she also will disappear like the other visions. The warm stove disappeared when the match went off. The lovely roast goose went off when the match burned out. And the glorious Christmas tree also disappeared when the match was out. So she knew when the match is out, grandmother will go away. So she gathers all the matchsticks and try to burn them in order to keep grandmother with her. So that is the climax of the story. The climax is reached wherein she is trying to keep grandmother with her by lighting all the matchsticks. Then she expresses her desire, you stay with me, and at the end she says, please carry me along. So grandmother takes her and goes. Next day they find the dead body of the girl, but it was different. Here she was not gloomy, she was not sad. Her face was smiling and her cheeks were rosy. That means very, very positive outlook she had. Her desires have been fulfilled. What did the grandmother carry then with her? It must have been the soul of the child. Atma, the soul of the child. So this is the plot. We shall see tomorrow the rest of it. Thank you.